Okay, introduction to ABR methods. I will be getting into specific methods later, so be sure to let me know on the survey what you would like to go more in depth on, and then in future videos I can show some of those methods in particular. So when we're talking about ABR methods, we have to be aware that there are different types of art forms. Wang, Comans, Sigismund, and Haynes classify the forms into 5 different areas. So they say that that's visual art, sound art, literary art, performing art, and new media. And I found that this is a good way to kind of organize the methods and find an easier way to talk about them. So the first form of ABR method I want to talk about is new media. This includes video-based methods, virtual reality, blogs, zines, and video games. And copyright issues do prevent me from sharing photos of other people's work, but I can share where you can find more information about them. And all of these recommendations that I'm going to share with you in this video will be written down, and you can look at them below in the blog. So they'll all be categorized. It'll be easy to find what you're looking for. So here I have Film is Research, Research is Film by Herring and Jones, and that's in the Handbook of Arts-Based Research that's edited by Levy. And then blogs also, that's going to be in the Handbook of Arts and Qualitative Research edited by Knowles and Cole. The next form I'm going to talk about is performing arts. So that includes dance, movement, theater, drama, ethnodrama, ethnotheater, and choreography. So some examples for the performing arts. We have living, moving, and dancing, embodied ways of inquiry. That's in the Handbook of Arts-Based Research with Levy as the editor. And then we also have ethnodrama and ethnotheater. That can be found in the Handbook of Arts and Qualitative Research by Knowles and Cole. And then we also have here a recommendation for Levy's book, Method Meets Art, Theater or Drama-Based Practices. The next form we're going to discuss is literary art. That can include narrative inquiry, fiction-based methods, poetry or poetic inquiry, autoethnography, creative nonfiction, and interpretive biography. So for examples of literary art, I will say that right now I'm trying out a new method called narrative autoethnography, which is basically autoethnography that tells a story. It's in the form of a narrative. I don't have anything to share with you about that yet, but maybe in the future. So I will talk about Patricia Levy's work. Patricia Levy, in addition to being a prolific author about arts-based research, also publishes arts-based research books that are stories. You know, she publishes novels. This is a series of short stories. The next form I want to talk about is sound art, and this can include music, radio, soundscape, pretty much anything including sound. So for some examples of sound art, we have the music lesson. That's in the Handbook of Arts and Qualitative Research, edited by Knowles and Cole, and Music as Method, which is also in Levy's book, Method Meets Art. And finally, the best for last, well, not really the best for last, but visual art is more my area of expertise and what I have been working on throughout most of my life, so I saved it for last because I have some actual examples to show you. Visual art includes painting, drawing, collage, art journal, installation, comics, photography, sculpture, quilting, pretty much any art form that you could see in a museum, even things that you would consider to be crafts. All of that is visual art. Okay, here are those examples of visual arts that I mentioned before. We'll start on the right-hand side with the watercolor painting that is showing a hand. This was meant to synthesize my results from data collection and analysis in a previous project. And in that project, I was making a self-portrait as a researcher. In the text that accompanied it, I explained that my work as a researcher is still developing, while acknowledging how far I have come as a researcher and a graduate student. I said that while my work is unfinished and still has a way to go, it is forming into shape and it is becoming. My watercolor painting reflects this. A clear form, mostly outlined, is projected out from the background, almost pulling the color splotches from the background into the form of a hand, which is a motif I commonly use in conceptual portrait and self-portrait work to represent the self. So this is something that I did during my master's degree, and it's just one part of a project, but it's a great example of how you can use painting as a method. If we look at the piece in the middle, this is another watercolor, but this is from an art journal that I am keeping this semester about my spring research project, actually this research project, where I'm recording written notes about what's happening with this project, how I feel, reflections on it, and also I'm including visual art about those topics as well. So this is just one page from it. I have a binder full of stuff, and this is just one of them. And when you're doing something like an art journal, it doesn't have to be your best artwork or your best ideas. This is just somewhere where you're working through, and it ends up being data for your research. And then this piece all the way on the left is just something from the early stages of arts-based research project that I did during my master's, where I was experimenting with some different art forms, experimenting with some different ideas. And this is just one of the earlier pieces. It's nothing that I showed to anybody. It's nothing that was hung on a wall or anything. It's actually inside of a book that I kind of took apart and added pages to and painted in and did all sorts of stuff. Um, and so that's just another example of this one could be considered collage that anybody can do for one of their methods for arts-based research.